In a surprising turn of events, Elon Musk's social media platform X has agreed to settle a lawsuit filed by former President Donald Trump for approximately $10 million. This resolution comes on the heels of a tumultuous chapter for Musk, whose leadership of X has been marred by controversies and challenges, including the platform's ongoing struggle with content moderation and user engagement. The lawsuit primarily revolved around claims of defamation and breach of contract, which were brought to light during Trump's post-presidency period. Musk, who has often been embroiled in legal disputes, seemed to prioritize moving forward as both he and the platform navigate a rapidly changing digital landscape. Meanwhile, as political dynamics in the United States shift, Trump has nominated Linda McMahon, the former CEO of World Wrestling Entertainment (WWE), for the position of Secretary of Education. McMahon's nomination comes during a time when the Trump administration is poised to reshape educational policy significantly. While her background in education is limited, having served a brief stint on Connecticut's State Board of Education, she is known for her commitment to expanding school choice and enhancing career and technical education opportunities. McMahon's confirmation hearings are expected to address the administration's controversial plans to potentially dissolve the Department of Education, a move that has drawn skepticism from educators and lawmakers alike. Her leadership experience in the private sector will be scrutinized as she outlines her vision for transforming educational outcomes in the U.S. In international affairs, Trump recently had a lengthy and highly productive phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, where both leaders agreed to initiate negotiations aimed at ending the ongoing war in Ukraine. This development has raised eyebrows, particularly as it was announced alongside a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy under Trump. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth emphasized Trump's unique capability to mediate between conflicting sides, while Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed cautious optimism about future discussions. However, tensions remain high as Trump's remarks hinted at the possibility of a diminishing role for Ukraine in NATO discussions, a concern for many in Kyiv. The ongoing conflict has caused devastating humanitarian consequences, and the prospect of peace negotiations introduces a complex layer of diplomacy that will require careful navigation. As these events unfold, the implications for both domestic and international policy remain significant. Musk's settlement with Trump reflects the intertwined nature of tech and politics in today's world. While McMahon's nomination signals a potential shift in the U.S. education landscape under the Trump administration. Meanwhile, the ongoing dialogue between Trump and Putin could redefine U.S.-Russia relations and influence the trajectory of the war in Ukraine. Looking ahead, the intersections of technology, education, and geopolitics will undoubtedly shape the discourse in the months to come as stakeholders from various sectors prepare to respond to the evolving landscape. In a bold move that has sent ripples through the cultural landscape of Washington, D.C., former President Donald Trump has taken control of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. This takeover, reminiscent of past political maneuvering in the arts, signifies a new chapter in the relationship between politics and culture, one that may reshape the artistic direction of this iconic institution. Historically, the Kennedy Center has been a venue for artistic expression and a symbol of cultural diplomacy, hosting over 2,200 events annually and drawing around 2 million visitors. However, under Trump's leadership, the center's cultural offerings may be drastically altered. After ousting board members appointed by President Joe Biden, Trump appointed himself as chairman, a move that raises concerns about the artistic integrity and independence of this revered institution. "We will make the Kennedy Center a very special and exciting place," Trump declared on his social media platform, highlighting his intent to influence the programming and artistic direction. This takeover comes on the heels of Trump's controversial statements regarding recent events at the center that featured drag queens, which he claims prompted the need for a purge of board members. His administration has made it clear that the future programming will reflect his vision, which he describes as a move away from what he deems woke culture. Critics argue that this shift could limit the diversity of artistic expression, alienating artists who may not align with Trump's political views. The impact of Trump's control over the Kennedy Center may extend beyond its walls. The Kennedy Center honors an annual gala celebrating influential artists could see a significant shift in honoree selections. With Trump now at the helm, it is conceivable that artists like Oprah Winfrey and George Clooney, who have publicly opposed him, may feel compelled to decline such honors. The Mark Twain Prize for American Humor awarded to prominent comedians may also undergo a transformation under Trump's oversight, potentially sidelining artists who have historically criticized his administration. The implications of this takeover resonate beyond the theater community. The Kennedy Center has long served as a platform for cultural diplomacy, with its programming often reflecting broader American values to an international audience. Trump's unilateral decisions regarding the center's artistic direction could alter how the U.S. is perceived abroad, as the arts are a critical component of national identity and soft power. Moreover, the chilling effect of Trump's administration on various institutions cannot be overstated. Many organizations, fearing backlash, may self-censor or alter their programming to avoid conflict with the administration. The recent decision by Booz Allen, a major government contractor, to withdraw sponsorship from World Pride exemplifies this trend. As Trump positions himself as an arbiter of American culture, the Kennedy Center faces an uncertain future. The once celebrated institution now risks becoming a vehicle for political messaging, potentially stifling the artistic freedom that has allowed it to thrive for over 5 decades. Observers of the arts community are left to ponder the consequences of this cultural shift and its potential to reshape the landscape of American art and diplomacy. In conclusion, Trump's takeover of the Kennedy Center represents a pivotal moment in the intersection of politics and the arts, one that could redefine the institution's role in American culture. As the new leadership begins to take shape, the reverberations of this decision will likely be felt both within the walls of the Kennedy Center and far beyond, prompting critical conversations about artistic freedom, political influence, and the future of cultural expression in the United States. The coming years will reveal whether this bold new direction will invigorate the center or stifle its artistic vitality under the weight of political ambition. In a day marked by significant political maneuvering, 2 major stories have emerged that underscore the complexities of governance and public safety in the current climate. First, the aftermath of a suspected car ramming attack in Munich has raised urgent concerns about security and immigration policy in Germany. Simultaneously, the Trump administration's recent hiring of tech billionaire Elon Musk as a special government employee has sparked debates over transparency and government efficiency. On Thursday, Munich was rocked by an incident that left at least 28 people injured, some critically, when a car drove into a crowd during a trade union rally. Authorities quickly identified the suspected attacker as a 24-year-old Afghan asylum seeker, who has since been detained. Witnesses described the scene as chaotic, with police reportedly firing at the vehicle as it accelerated towards pedestrians. This attack occurred just a mile from the Munich Security Conference, which is set to welcome leaders including Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. Bavarian State Premier Markus Söder condemned the incident, highlighting its implications for Germany's immigration policies as the nation approaches a snap election on February 23. "This shows something's got to change in Germany," he stated, reflecting the growing concerns among politicians and the public regarding national security and immigration. Munich Mayor Dieter Reiter expressed his shock, noting that children were among the injured. The timing of this attack adds further complexity to an already charged political atmosphere as Germany grapples with the ramifications of immigration and security in the wake of recent events. In a markedly different arena, the Trump administration has taken a bold step by appointing Elon Musk to helm the newly established Department of Government Efficiency (DOGE). Musk, who is known for his roles as CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, has been designated as a special government employee, a status that allows him to work in a temporary capacity while providing specialized expertise. Under his leadership, DOGE has already terminated numerous government contracts and grants aiming to cut federal spending. Musk's appointment has not been without controversy. Critics are questioning the extent of his powers and the implications of having a private sector billionaire influencing government operations. Kathleen Clark, a government ethics expert, pointed out that while Musk has been granted significant access to sensitive government information, his authority to shut down entire agencies raises constitutional concerns. In a statement, Musk has stressed the importance of transparency in Doge's operations, claiming that the office's activities are clearly communicated through its social media channels. Trump's administration is facing scrutiny from various quarters, with some Democratic state attorneys general filing lawsuits against Doge, challenging its authority and seeking clarity on its operations. The Trump administration's approach to governance, marked by a blend of private sector influence and aggressive policy changes, continues to provoke intense debate about the future of government efficiency and accountability. As the dust settles on these developments, the implications of the Munich attack and Musk's controversial role in the government will likely resonate in the political discourse for some time. The Munich incident raises urgent questions about security measures and immigration policy in Europe, while the dynamics of Musk's influence in Washington could reshape the contours of federal governance. Both stories highlight the delicate balance between innovation and safety, efficiency and responsibility. As the world navigates increasingly complex challenges in governance and public policy. As future developments unfold, it remains to be seen how these narratives will evolve and impact the political landscape both in Europe and the United States. In recent months, inflation has emerged as a formidable economic challenge for President Donald Trump, overshadowing his ambitious plans to reshape the U.S. economy. The latest Consumer Price Index report, released on February 12, 2025, indicates that the annual inflation rate has risen to 3% since the November election, a trend that threatens to undermine Trump's assertions that he could swiftly deflate prices and bolster consumer confidence. At a rally in California last year, Trump had confidently proclaimed, "We are going to take inflation and we are going to deflate it. We're going to knock the hell out of inflation." However, the current economic landscape suggests that this is easier said than done. The report reveals that inflation is being driven by several factors, including rising gasoline prices, which have persisted despite Trump's assurances that increased oil production would alleviate energy costs. This trend serves as a stark reminder that the president's proclamations may not be sufficient to counteract the complex forces of supply and demand in the market. As Biden's administration faced similar challenges, Trump now finds himself grappling with the same economic headwinds that plagued his predecessor. The implications of rising inflation are profound, sparking unease among economists and investors alike. Strong consumer spending, robust job growth, and low unemployment rates are contributing to fears that inflation could reignite. The market has reacted accordingly, with the yield on the 10-year Treasury note surging to 4.62% following the release of the inflation report, indicating increased expectations for higher interest rates and sustained inflation. Joseph Brusweilis, chief economist at RSM, expressed concern that disinflation may be dead, suggesting that the U.S. could see inflation rates higher than those experienced in the 2 decades preceding the pandemic. Adding to the complexity of the situation is Trump's recent advocacy for interest rate cuts, a stance that stands in stark contrast to Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell's commitment to maintaining a restrictive policy in response to rising inflation. Powell reiterated that the Fed would prioritize bringing inflation back down to its 2% target regardless of Trump's calls for lower rates. This divergence in economic philosophy could further complicate efforts to stabilize the economy. Trump's administration has positioned itself to blame the Biden administration for the current inflationary pressures. But this argument may have limited longevity as Trump exerts more control over economic policy. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt acknowledged the challenges left by Biden, stating that the Biden administration indeed left us with a mess to deal with. In an effort to tackle rising prices, Trump supporters, including billionaire Elon Musk, have proposed drastic measures such as $1 trillion in federal spending cuts. Musk argued that slashing the budget deficit could alleviate inflation, claiming, "If you cut the budget deficit by $1 trillion between now and next year, there is no inflation."
However, critics point out that such severe cuts could trigger a recession, with Michael Linden from the Washington Center for Equitable Growth warning that a 4% reduction in federal spending in a single year would be economically devastating, as inflationary pressures continue to mount.
Consumer sentiment reflects growing concerns about the future. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Survey has shown a sharp increase in expectations for inflation over the coming year, with respondents often citing tariffs as a significant concern. This growing fear among consumers could further complicate the economic landscape for the Trump administration as it seeks to implement its policies. The economic challenges facing Trump are not just limited to rising prices. The administration's plans to impose additional tariffs on imports from countries like Canada and Mexico could exacerbate inflationary pressures. Local store owners in Kentucky, for instance, have reported rising supplier costs due to these tariffs, with estimates suggesting they could cost the average Kentuckian up to $1,200 annually.
Senator Mitch McConnell has voiced strong opposition to these policies, emphasizing that tariffs ultimately lead to higher prices for consumers and could disrupt critical supply chains that support thousands of jobs. As Trump navigates this complex economic landscape, it is clear that inflation will remain a significant challenge. The administration's success in addressing these issues will likely shape its economic legacy and influence public perception leading into future elections. With market volatility and rising inflation expectations, the coming months will be crucial for determining how the Trump administration adapts its policies in response to evolving economic realities. In a world where geopolitical tensions are on the rise, the transatlantic defense relationship is poised for a significant transformation under the leadership of Donald Trump, who has recently proposed a bold strategy to reshape NATO and bolster European defense spending, as the United States grapples with its evolving role in global security. Trump's approach aims to reconcile the divergent views of NATO allies regarding defense expenditures and strategic autonomy. This potential shift could not only strengthen the alliance but also play a crucial role in addressing the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and countering the influence of China. The Trump administration's insistence that NATO allies pay their fair share for defense has long been a cornerstone of its foreign policy. European countries, on the other hand, are increasingly focused on building their own strategic autonomy, enhancing domestic defense industries, and responding to Russian aggression. The challenge lies in bridging these two perspectives, especially in light of the tariffs that the Trump administration has imposed or threatened. Recent discussions have indicated that European leaders are prepared to purchase more American defense systems as part of a broader agreement to increase spending in their own national defense budgets. As Dr. Alexandra de Hoop-Scheffer, acting president of the German Marshall Fund of the United States, points out, this could lead to a rebalancing of transatlantic trade and a shift of defense responsibilities towards European NATO countries. In her view, such a move is not only essential for the long-term rearmament of Europe but also aligns with Trump's primary policy goal of achieving a lasting peace in Ukraine. If rearming Europe and ending the war in Ukraine deters China, all the better, she stated. However, the question of how much additional spending is feasible remains contentious. At the recent Davos meeting, Trump urged NATO members to raise their defense spending from the current 2% of GDP to 5%. While this figure is ambitious, NATO's unofficial recommendation stands at 3% to 3.5% of GDP, a target that European countries might be more willing to accept. If European NATO members were to commit to even the lower target of 3.5%, this could translate to approximately €630 billion annually, a significant increase from the €350 billion spent last year. The implementation of higher defense spending may prove challenging for many European nations, particularly those with sluggish economic growth and stringent debt regulations. While frontline countries like Poland have demonstrated that spending more than 4% of GDP on defense is possible, others such as Italy and Spain have yet to meet the 2% guideline. The guns versus butter debate is particularly relevant in the current climate of budget cuts and political turbulence across Europe.
Investment in domestic defense industries is crucial for Europe to meet rising demand. As De Hoop Scheffer notes, the fragmentation of European arms suppliers has hindered their ability to respond effectively to the increased need for defense capabilities. By pushing European NATO members to meet the 3.5% target while simultaneously investing in their own defense sectors, the US could help create a more robust transatlantic defense posture. This would not only strengthen the negotiating position against Russia but also send a clear signal of commitment to Allied security. As tensions continue to escalate, the possibility of a trade war between the US and Europe looms large. Such an outcome would undermine both parties' efforts to sustain the necessary spending to ensure security in the face of Russian aggression. The upcoming Munich Security Conference presents a critical opportunity for leaders to align their positions and reinforce their commitments to mutual defense. However, the political landscape in Europe adds another layer of complexity. With elections looming in Germany and Poland and ongoing uncertainty in the French parliament, leaders may be tempted to sidestep difficult discussions about increased defense spending. This creates a narrow window for NATO allies led by the US to solidify their negotiating stance with Russia and signal a long-term commitment to European defense responsibilities. Looking ahead, the US has an opportunity to redefine the transatlantic defense relationship in a way that not only addresses immediate security concerns but also lays the groundwork for a more equitable distribution of defense responsibilities. By fostering European rearmament and encouraging investment in domestic industries, the US can help ensure a stronger, more resilient NATO capable of deterring both Russian and Chinese threats. As the dynamics of global politics continue to evolve, the decisions made in the coming months could have lasting implications for the future of transatlantic security. In a significant move signaling a shift in U.S. foreign policy dynamics, President Donald Trump recently signed an executive order aimed at reforming the country's foreign service. Announced on February 12, 2025, the order seeks to ensure that U.S. diplomats align closely with the president's foreign policy agenda. A development that has sparked considerable debate among political analysts and foreign relations experts alike. The executive order, titled One Voice for America's Foreign Relations, directs Secretary of State Marco Rubio to implement reforms in the recruitment, performance evaluation, and retention standards of foreign service personnel. This directive underscores Trump's ongoing efforts to consolidate power within the federal workforce, particularly in areas he perceives as influenced by political opposition. Failure to faithfully implement the president's policy is grounds for professional discipline, including separation. The order explicitly states, raising concerns about the potential erosion of the diplomatic corps' traditional protections against partisan pressures. Critics argue that this approach undermines the foundational principles of the Foreign Service, which emphasize hiring based on expertise and welcoming dissenting opinions. Michael Crowley, a political analyst at The New York Times, noted that the order appears to be a direct challenge to established norms that prioritize diplomatic integrity over political allegiance. The American Foreign Service Association, representing professional diplomats, expressed cautious concern, asserting that its members execute the foreign policy initiatives of the president regardless of party affiliation, and emphasizing the need to preserve the integrity and nonpartisan nature of the Foreign Service. The implications of this executive order extend beyond internal reforms. They come at a time when global tensions remain high, particularly regarding the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. In a related development, Trump mentioned that both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky are seeking peace, a statement that coincides with renewed discussions aimed at ending the war. The potential for diplomatic engagements raises questions about how the revamped Foreign Service will navigate these complex international waters under Trump's directives, further complicating the landscape. Trump is expected to nominate Sarah Rogers, a lawyer known for defending the National Rifle Association, as Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy. This nomination is part of a broader strategy to shape the narrative surrounding U.S. communication with the public and international audiences, particularly in the realm of social media, where Trump aims to advocate for more expansive free speech protections.
The sweeping changes proposed by Trump come alongside reports of personnel cuts within the State Department, which have already placed thousands of USAID employees on administrative leave. These cuts have spurred legal action from the American Foreign Service Association, citing national security concerns. As the administration continues to tighten its grip over diplomatic channels, it raises critical questions about the future of U.S. foreign relations and the effectiveness of its diplomatic efforts on the global stage. As the situation evolves, the effectiveness of Trump's reforms will likely be scrutinized closely, particularly as they pertain to ongoing global crises. The potential for a more politicized foreign service could alter the landscape of U.S. diplomacy, making it imperative for stakeholders to monitor how these changes resonate both domestically and internationally. With diplomatic discussions regarding Ukraine and other global issues on the horizon, how the revamped foreign service adapts to these challenges will be crucial in shaping the future trajectory of U.S. foreign policy.